Video games often allow for players to experience a world not like their own, allowing them to truly dive into shoes of others and help us comprehend to some degree of others' perspectives. Games like Sally Face allows for us to understand the deeper emotions of survivor's guilt and forgiving oneself. Frambo takes us on a journey of a mind psychosis, and The Whole braves the narrative of child abuse. While a game by the name of Postal takes us in the mind of a killer and a mind undergoing psychosis and reaching extreme heights of paranoia.
Playland has all the hottest video games, from pinball to multiple player games. Playland Arcade is definitely wall-to-wall fun. It's just across from campus on College Avenue.
It's 1997. Video games are growing up. They're faster, louder, bloodier, and Postal storms onto the scene like a Molotov being thrown through a glass window. It's not just violent, it's disturbing, and unlike anything players have ever seen before. But Postal isn't just about bullets and bitings, it's about a fractured mind in a world that has gone cold, and maybe it's even a cry for help beneath all of the chaos the game entails. Now, in order to really talk about Postal in a very effective type of way, we need to first talk about the history and the context. That matters a lot. Postal was released in November of 1997 by Running with Scissors, a small independent studio with a chip on its shoulders. It came out around the same time as Quake 2, Fallout, and GoldenEye, but Postal was different. Isometric instead of 3D, dialogue free, ugly on purpose, and it didn't want to be fun, it wanted to be felt. The game sparked controversy, rightfully so. Players assumed the role of a man who commits mass murder based on the belief that the town around him has been infected. In an era of increasingly concern with media violence, Postal was looked at as the worst case scenario. But here's the twist. Postal may have been one of the most psychologically interesting games of its time.
As I have stated, Postal is one of the most psychological induced narratives that I've come to watch and read and play. It's a really good roller coasters of emotions. It really reminded me of Afraid of Monsters, something that I'm going to often compare it to just because of the similarities and obvious inspirations that Afraid of Monster got from games like these. I don't think it's hard for me to say that 9 times out of 10, I'm pretty sure that Afraid of Monsters was only able to run because Postal had crawled. But enough about the comparison, I want to at least talk about the gameplay itself. So let's break it down. The gameplay reflects the game perfectly. Postal isn't about skill, it's about survival. Psychological as well as physical. Even before getting into the game, the title screen shows you all you need to know before going into it. The music is spooky. The drawings, the illustrations, the characters, the skulls, everything is barely visible. Everything is caped in this deep, dark red. And even not just focusing on the pure visuals here, distorted screaming can be heard when clicking on an option. Or it could be this demented laughing. It's really hard to tell. And arguably, the creepiest detail of them all are the levels, names, and the descriptions that come with them. For example, the first level being home. With each level, it'll come a date, and then it'll have some edgy shit. And at first it starts off with something very edgy, and then you'll come to later hear and read about things that are just slowly more delusional, more paranoia, more evil. For example, the first level being home, it'll say 10/17/97. The earth is hungry. Its heart throbs and demands cleansing. The earth is also thirsty. And then the next, the outskirts. The air ripens with the odors of dead and dying. It smells like victory. And then the very next day, on the 18th of, I think, October 1997, the parade of disaster, a glorious symphony of slaughter. 76 tromboners led the death of Parade. The bridge, the very same day. Life is cheap. Death is free. Act now. Supplies are limited. Offer void in Arizona. The mines, same day as well. Furious fireflies materialize against the cavern wall and sunder the earth into dust. Come, little insects, and see the web we've woven. And then the next day, I will don the ever-secreted organs of my enemies as party hats, wearing their shredded entrails as neckties. You know how I shall dance. And honestly, it just goes on and on and on, but I don't want to just harp on the entire game, because the entire point of the game is like a slow, demented rundown into the horrors of psychological break, of psychosis, and a world filled of delusion. And I think the game capitalizes that. It goes from something as simple as home, where you're fighting the cops. Your first victims are cops trying to stop your crusade, your massacre. However, in later things, people, like, new enemies begin to sprout out, and they become way more materialized and way more just out of the norm. It's hard for you to believe this is exactly what you're seeing is real. It's all just demented. And as I stated, in Afraid of Monsters, a similar type of detail was very much like that. All of the monsters in that game had pretty much everyday clothes on. They would wear business suits and ties. Well, you'll kill some that just have civilian, regular clothes, or some others will just be office workers or construction workers. Everything. All these enemies aren't even monsters. They're just people like you and I, doing their job, and some random guy with a gun, seeing delusions, seeing some drug-induced, some psychosis, some mentally induced illness episode come right out and just kill you without a second thought. Because to them, or to you, you look like a monster. And to them, well, they can't afford to not shoot first. But I went on and on about games and other, like, media. But let's talk about what Postal is even about, and how the gameplay reflects on what the game is trying to display. So your objective is to kill a number of people and reach a certain amount of quota of the people that you killed in order to unlock the next level. And obviously doing so, some will shoot back, some won't. It's just filled with screams. You have to do these things, and you have to survive while doing it. The enemies sometimes are armed, sometimes they're innocent. You often can't really tell until it's way too late. And I think that's another portion of the game that I find to be very enthralling, is that not only, because it takes kind of what gaming has crafted as kind of second nature to us. If you put someone in front of us, that means they are our enemy. You don't want to wait or it's a game over, so you just end up shooting them. However, in certain games like Call of Duty, they will draw that line. If you shoot a civilian, game over. If you blow up the wrong house, game over. If you shoot your own friend, game over. If you're playing Rainbow Six Siege and some asshole wants to shoot you, get banned, bitch. All of these things, right? But this game, however, takes a different approach. This has zero bearing to how you're going to win the game. If you shoot somebody and they happen to be a civilian, whoops. However, now it's just another number added to my quota. It's not going to make me fail. It's not going to have me start over the game, but it's not really adding anything either. Just another number. Now let's talk about the weapons. You get pistols, machine guns, Molotovs, a rocket launcher. Brutal, loud, and clunky. However, it's not really meant to look fancy. It's meant to look sloppy. It's meant to be grotesque. And that's another portion of the game that I find to be very enthralling and very intriguing, is that you will have these guns The art style is hideous. Like I told you in the title screen, everything is grainy and gritty and scary, which I find very interesting because when you're at the title screen and you even play the game, it almost feels like Silent Hill, even though this game predates Silent Hill. It's very interesting because it has that feeling of you're in the mind of a tortured individual. Nothing is rainbow and sunshines. Everything is gritty. Everything you're doing is demented, and you know it's demented to the point where you have to delude yourself to the point that reality justifies your actions until it can't. But we're going to get more into that. And then the last thing that I want to talk about within the gameplay is the minimalistic. There's no radar. There's no compass to tell you where you're going to go. It's just numbers on a screen. And I believe that also adds more to the game than most realize, but it kind of makes you feel like you're just on a frenzy. Players themselves don't even really know what exactly it is that they're doing. They just know that they're looking for the next person to shoot or the next person that will allow them to go to the next level. It's not really about, hey, I need to go here and save this. No, there's no objectives here. The objective is to kill as many people and reach a certain quota. And I believe that that game, making it out to be this way, only allows for the players to deepen the gaming narrative while also playing the game exactly as it was instructed to be played. Each level starts with the postal dude alone, no music, just eerie, ambiotic sounds. You walk, you watch people move, and then you shoot. It's not elegant, it's not satisfying, it's an intentional discomfort. For example, the suburban cul-de-sacs become war zones. Fire trucks, homes, barking dogs. Innocent people panic and scatter. Some pull out guns on you, some just run. There's no moral compass in the HUD, only a kill percentage. The game forces you to quickly fall into this rhythm that mirrors paranoid delusion. If I don't shoot first, well, they might. This is where Postal becomes a psychological potent video game. The gameplay reinforces a mental state that everyone is out to get you, and violence is truly the only way. You cannot beat the game without shooting your gun. Let's look through a different lens now. One used in the mental health education. The postal dude shows signs of psychosis. It's very evident. A mental state involving disconnection from reality. And these symptoms may include paranoia, which, as you would know, paranoia usually just means that the world becomes very revolved around them. So every little thing somehow relates back to the subject. So for example, let's say someone is laughing in the distance. Someone with paranoia may believe that this person somehow is laughing at them, because in their head, there's no other reason that they should be laughing that loud. To them, they must be pointing at the subject and laughing at them, when in reality, they're just laughing at something completely unrelated to them. Another symptom may include auditory hallucinations, which is basically what we see throughout the game, especially the end of the game, something that I'm going to again talk about. However, in the title screen, all these screams and hollers and everything, we can only infer that that's in the mind of our main character, the postal dude. And if that's the case, then these auditory hallucinations are extremely evident, extremely prominent within his head. Obviously, some other symptoms may include that the postal dude has for psychosis is delusions and emotional detachment. The reason why I say delusions is because I guess I kind of skimmed over this part, but the entire premise of Postal is that this guy believes that everyone has gone crazy. Everyone in the town has gone crazy to some degree, and believes that he's cleansing them because they've all gotten infected by the crazy or the angry or something like it. And so his delusions is trying to justify his actions of fighting these people. It's kind of like a defense mechanism for the brain. In order for you to do what you need to do, well, the brain finds a way for you to fill your head with delusions and justify it to the fact that now you're able to do what you need to do to survive. And then the emotional detachment portion, he's killing all of these people. And it's also kind of just like a mixture of everything. Auditory hallucinations and delusions add to his emotional detachment. These aren't humans, these are monsters. These are people that I am cleansing. I am doing the world a favor of doing such things. I am doing what is right, essentially. However, as we see in the very end of the game, when we talk about the end of the game, well, it all comes crashing down. And to add to this mental illness, I guess, aspect lens, is that the Postal dude would have a diary throughout the game, and I will just read a few lines that I come to find in the game. But for example, they are everywhere. I must cleanse the earth of their taint. That's a crazy word, huh? The earth is hungry. These are textbook delusions, but the game doesn't correct them. It rewards them. Each kill moves you closer to your goal. This makes Postal a case study of how delusional systems self-sustain. Educationally, we use the stress vulnerability model to explain how stress and predisposition can trigger mental illness. Postal doesn't give us a backstory, but it does give us signs of stress, isolations, and a violent reaction to trauma. And not to harp on a dead horse here, but it also adds more to the game when the gameplay itself reflects the mental health issues, right? A lot of times, I think I've already gone through this in the previous section that I talked about, but I really do want to like hammer home just how interesting of a game this truly is when you really think about it, because you are playing as some random dude. I think that much is already very effective. There is no backstory for this guy. There is no evil monologue for this guy. It literally just starts off as one thing, as home, and then boom, you're off to killing. And I believe that this kind of drops you into the middle of everything. Oftentimes when people are undergoing psychosis, after their psychosis is up, after their psychosis is through, that episode has subsided, 9 times out of 10, they won't recollect what they were doing, why they were doing it. But I say this to say that I believe that placing the player in an already, like, we don't see the build up to his breakdown, we don't see the reasons as to why he's undergoing psychosis. All we see is what he's doing and what he tells us. And so in a way, we as a player kind of add to this meta commentary of morals. Maybe if we stop shooting, maybe if we just close the game, he would have never done these heinous acts. Maybe if we just stop shooting all the civilians, maybe we never had to reach this quota. Why did we as players need to reach a quota to begin with? Was it just to complete? What was our goal even? And when you do get the goal, what did that satisfy? And I believe that that is what the game really digs deep on, is like, you are the problem. Because yes, I coded this game in zeros and ones for you to play, but nothing was binding your hands to taking those weapons and killing those innocent civilians other than wanting to see things through. How are you any different than Postal Dude? Now, the next part that I do want to focus on is the design to mirror the descent into madness, because essentially that is exactly what we go through. Postal's levels feel like stages of psychological collapse. Let's walk through some, shall we? So, first of all, we start off at home, and we shoot all the people, da 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 da. The suburbs, right? Normalcy breaks down. You begin at home, then there's this sense of order, but then panic sets in quickly. Then we go to the next section, the ghetto. The world is dirtier. People are more aggressive. You're losing control. More people are shooting at you. More people are after you. It's getting claustrophobic. It's getting tense. And then we go that down even further. The junkyard, the mall. It's becoming overstimulating. You're introduced into environments that have extreme clutter, whether it's inanimate objects or not. Too much noise, too much motion. This is sensory overload. And then you finally have the parade. Now you're simply overwhelmed. Crowds flood the scene. This is a representation of complete dissociation. The player loses track of what's even happening. All you're now supposed to do is shoot, shoot, shoot. Shoot and pray. Shoot and ask questions later. Shoot. Don't think. Don't think. Do not think. These environments reflect a psychological journey downward. Each level is more chaotic, more hostile, less structured, and by the end, structure disappears altogether, which is something that I want to really talk on, because for people undergoing psychosis, for people who have these episodes in the first place, a big part of what is really gaining on them is their lack of control. And usually when they are moving in a way that many cannot comprehend is because they're seeing something completely different. But in their head, they are simply just trying to remain in control. Humans as a species reign for control. When you are, and it goes from minor to major, but here's the minor example, right? When you are chilling in your room, and for most, and some people are, obviously I can't put everybody in one little section, but for most, when your room begins to be cluttered, your mind is cluttered. So when you start cleaning up, you are both physically and mentally clearing up space. You're in control. You're moving these things around as you see as you see fit. You are moving these things around. But then on a major level, let's say something like life, an unpredicted family death. It throws your entire world into a spiral. Now what you used to feel like was your everyday normalcy has now been turned upside down. For a moment, you felt as if you had a schedule. You had a system going. You would wake up, go to work, and everything should remain as is. But then this unpredicted death comes out of left field. And now you have so much more to worry about without a huge pillar in your life if you're close to your, person that passed away. But now you need to make sure that they have a place to be buried. Now you need to buy a casket. Now you need to do some fucking burial insurance. Now you need to get a pastor. Is it a pastor? Someone to bury the person and say the words, whatever. You have to realize what their will was going towards. If it goes towards a certain person, or if it's me or whatever. You just have so many things, so many bolts that was just thrown into the drying machine, and now it's making a fucking mess. You don't know what's going on. What you used to think was your system it's fucked. It's broke. And that is basically what happens with people in psychosis. They are trying to remain in control, but their mind is so disconnected from reality that they begin to act in sporadic ways. They begin to not truly comprehend what's truly happening around them. And so when they're trying to grasp or desperately grasp onto normalcy, onto structure, onto control, it usually doesn't happen. And we see this in the ending of the video game.
Population pressure and the stress of modern life may cause an increase in violent tendencies. The urban environment is the incubator for all sorts of undesirable behaviors. However much his atrocities disgust us, we may actually consider himself a hero. This is common among those who, in popular slang, are postal. In his tortured mind, he may feel that his tracking against impossible odds. It is not unusual for some individuals to frequently taking entire physical period of self-doubt. In the end, while subject display all the classic symptoms of paranoid delusion, we may never know exactly what set him off, but rest assured we will have plenty of time to study him.
The elementary school. The final level puts you in a playground. The enemies, they're children. No weapons, just kids playing. This level was so controversial, it was censored in some versions. But in context, it is not about the violence, it's about the collapse. The madness ends here. The postal dude lies in a catatonic state. This ending isn't very rewarding. There's no victory to be had. It's not triumphant. It's tragic. The postal dude doesn't win. He breaks. He completely detaches from reality, suggesting that what we've played was never about justice. It was about a man losing his grip on the world. Within this whole scene here, postal dude sees a bunch of kids playing, minding their own business. And of course, up until now, you have been instructed to shoot what has been in front of you. That has been the same thing you've done for 2 hours now. Why play any different at this point? And when you try shooting them, your bullets don't seem to hit them. They run around, they're scattered, they're scared, but you just can't seem to shoot them. No matter how hard you try, no matter what weapon you use, you will always miss. And when you realize what it is that you're doing, the postal dude collapses. Both mentally, physically, and emotionally. He collapses on the ground, and the screen goes blurry, and we get a fantastic ending scene.
In his tortured mind, he may feel that his tracking against impossible odds. It is not unusual for some individuals to frequently taking entire physical period of self-doubt. In the end, while subject display all the classic symptoms of paranoid delusion, we may never know exactly what set him off, but rest assured we will have plenty of time to study him.
This is what mental health professionals call decompensation, the complete breakdown of coping mechanisms. In education, this moment could open up many key discussions. What are the signs of untreated trauma? Could this character have been helped earlier? Where does society fail people like this? Which, honestly, I believe takes me straight into my next section. Ethics, education, and empathy. So, what do we do with a game like Postal? It's controversial for sure, but it is also very useful. Used carefully, Postal could be a teaching tool. In media literacy, how do games manipulate perspective? What do delusions look like in a narrative form? And in ethics, when is violence expression and when is it exploitation? This game, Postal, is not exploitation. I don't believe there to be. I think so many games have done this now. It was just a shock at the moment in 1997 where you're just shooting civilians and you're like, what in the actual fuck? But there has been so many games that have taken that form of education based and truly have learned so much from it. If you really want to argue this boat, Franbo, a game that is overtly just very quirky, but then it's set in a serious situation here. You're talking about parent murder. You're talking about human experimentation, lobotomy. Take the time period, they're in the 1940s. And so putting two to two together, women used to just get lobotomized for being women. Oh, you're on your period and you're a little extra angsty? Well, chop chop. Now you're better, right? But no, that is not better. And the only reason why I'm bringing up Franbo is because I am living proof of how video games can be very expressive, even with a super dark narrative such as lobotomy, human experimentation, sexual abuse, and everything else. And 900,000 people, other than myself, agreed to that sentiment. Sally Face, same difference. Goes over the games of survival, guilt, and forgiving oneself. I have no mouth and I must scream. Dangers of AI, and truly just knowing that humans as a species has the ability to always do good. There's so many things in the darkest stories. I think that's the reason why that these stories become as big as they are, is because they usually hold the most weight. Some of the most beautiful songs come from the deepest, darkest parts of the heart. And I believe that this is the same way with this game. It was just time and a place. In 1997, games were just being on the boom. They would always place blame. And of course, this was an easy topic. This game forces you to experience a delusional state from the inside. And in doing so, it creates empathy. Not for the actions, but for the illness behind the actions. We don't excuse what the postal dude does, but we recognize the reality that this was untreated mental illness and that it could be catastrophic, especially when the stigma silences it. Postal isn't a game that you are supposed to love. It's a game that you endure. It's uncomfortable, it's ugly, and it's harsh. But it's also important, not for the violence, but for its window into what happens when we ignore the signs, when we stop listening, when someone cries out through the chaos and no one hears. I believe that this is definitely more prominent than ever. There's been so many musical artists who have put their souls in their music, screaming for help. And when they would finally take their life, everybody's surprised. And then we will go back and listen to the songs and they mean completely different things when you hear the words that you're screaming, singing on stage to millions. When we see these grotesque shootings, these mass shootings, these school shootings, to the point where here in America, school shootings is so normalized that people, when seeing it, they're more distraught that there was another one rather than that there was one at all. And I believe that many of these things drive from mental illness. And there has to be a better way for us to find these signs much earlier on before it's too late. And after I had that heartfelt message about mental illness and how we just need to have a listening ear, there has to be better ways for us to understand and how to stop these things before they even become a thing. Color me surprised when I find out there's not only a second Postal, but there's also 7 other titles. Where have I been? Under a rock like Patrick Star? I was fine with there just being a sequel. I was like, second game? This isn't the first time this happened. Afraid of Monster exists for a reason. I didn't realize that those two had anything to do together. Bitch, there's 7 extra titles? Yeah, I'm not gonna do all that unless you guys truly enjoy this video. Let me know if you want a full deep dive on everything Postal related, because right now, I don't know if I want to do a 9-game passion project. I'm not going to lie. Also, what you just heard was Yuri about 2 days ago. This is future Yuri now. I know this is getting a little creepy. I did research on the other games, and they fucking suck. So I don't know if I'm going to talk about a game that stopped taking themselves seriously as well. Obviously, there's a rise and a fall, and then there's another rise again. The rise is what we just talked about, and then the fall was Postal 2 onwards. But apparently, now that there's a new one called Postal Brain Damaged, I don't fucking know. But as of right now, I'm just going to focus on Postal 1 and 2 and just the beginning of 3. But like I said, if you guys really want to know everything Postal related, I can make a 4-hour video on that, but just let me know if that's what you guys want. But I am interested in the narrative that Postal 1 and 2 were telling, as these two do actually connect canonically to some degree. So let's dig in.
Alright, you may be able to hear a little bit of a difference in terms of audio quality. I'm back home. Yes, I just woke up. Yes, I need this to breathe. Yes, I snore. Let's just get into the video, okay? We've talked about Postal 1, as I believe, because I'm doing this very choppily. I probably recorded what you just heard probably like 2-3 days ago, but I believe we just went through Postal 1 and all of the design choices and whatnot, which was really cool. But now we're gonna dive into Postal 2.
Christ, it's as hot as the devil's rectum in here. When did we move to hell?
You were the one who insisted on relocating for that stupid video game job.
Yeah, well, crack doesn't by itself, you know. Why isn't the AC on? Broken.
When you're done screwing around, I made a list of errands for you on the fridge.
Jesus, woman.
This is Postal 2. It's grotesque, offensive.
Hi there, would you like to sign my petition?
No way, you freaking pinko.
Today we're diving deep into the mayhem of Postal 2. Not just the gameplay or the controversy, but the mental mechanisms, societal metaphors, and the connections to psychological horror of the first game. Because to understand Postal 2, you need to understand madness from both inside and outside. Paradise, Arizona. A sun-bleached, exaggerated, chaotic, cathartic American suburbia. On the surface, convenience stores, gun shops, trailer parks, and Gary Colan and autograph signings. But this isn't a real town. It's a reflection, a grotesque mirror of American culture in the early 2000s, a world bursting with racial tension, religious extremists, corporate bullshit, and apocalyptic energy. And right in the middle is the Postal dude. He lives in a trailer, he's broke as fuck, he just gets through his errands and goes about his days, and he is surrounded by people who are seemingly designed to make that very errand impossible. Postal 2 isn't about mass murder. It's about how thin the line is between the mundane and the insane, and how society itself might be suffering from the collective dysfunction. And now I do want to stop it here and talk about the game itself, the gameplay. I know a big part of my entire YouTube channel is that I would go over the go over the video game itself, the gameplay, what we can find. I just can't do... My fucking door just closed by itself. But I just can't do that with this game. It is like one of the hardest games to let alone play. It's $10, and $10 for trash, I don't think I want to do that, no matter how good the trash is. But I digress. I may, like, going further, I want to put the transparency up and everybody understands this game is not necessarily a very good game. I'm only solely focusing on the narrative and what it could be talking about in comparison to the first game. The gameplay itself is really lackluster. The story itself is super satire, and it's just it doesn't take itself very seriously. And whether that was done on purpose or not, it still just doesn't fit the feeling that I want this video to have. And so I'm not going to be focusing on the gameplay, more so the conjunction of both Postal 1 and 2 and what it really could be trying to convey within its narrative. But I just wanted to, like, get on the microphone and say that before anyone's like, did you actually play the game? Yes, I've seen gameplay of it. It's ridiculously stupid. But I do see that there is a story being told here. It's not just on accident. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. But while I have your mind on Postal 1, let's rewind. The first Postal was paranoid, dark, minimalist. The Postal dude was a character in decline, clearly unwell, and slowly unraveling and increasingly becoming more delusional. But then Postal 2 flips the script. It's a first-person game, not third-person. It's an open world and non-linear, pretty much just the opposite of Postal 1. And it's funny, or at least it tries to be funny.
Yes!
But here's the twist. Postal 2 isn't just a sequel. It's a reconstruction. It takes place after the first game, which ended up with the dude in a mental asylum. So how does he get out? How is he fine? The answer? Well, he's not. Postal 2 might be a delusion, fantasy, a simulation running inside his head while he rots within the mental asylum. In other words, this game is the Postal dude trying to pretend that he's perfectly okay. That's the tragedy. Now for the gameplay, Postal 2 runs on a simple loop. You go through Monday through Friday. You have 5 errands to run every single day. Freedom to follow or to ignore them. Like, you could do them, you couldn't do them. It's up to you. And everything can be peaceful, or it could just be total carnage. It's really up to you. Some errands may include cashing in a paycheck, buying milk, returning a book, confessing at the church, attending a protest, and delivering a package. A literal ticking bomb. But what makes the game so interesting and, like, allows you to understand that the game itself is trying to tell you something is how fucking mundane this game can be. You have to actually wait in lines. Yes, when you're doing your errands, you have to wait in line to buy milk. You have to wait in line to attend a protest. You have to wait in line to cash in a paycheck at the bank. It's ridiculous, but I think the game is doing that on purpose, because in the first game, like I had stated, Postal dude, we don't even know his name, Postal dude was going around killing people, murdering people, and slowly declining until he was captured, because he finally gave into his delusions that he couldn't do it. He couldn't continue his carnage, and so he was now in mental asylum. And now in Postal 2, it's in the inside. He's trying to fake like everything's okay, that he's in control. But the biggest part about this entire ordeal is that you're not in control. You can try to be, but every single individual makes that nearly impossible for you to remain as peaceful as possible. You end up shooting people. You end up creating carnage in this otherwise peaceful dystopian, right? or this peaceful dystopia. I apologize. But I think the game does that on purpose. The game is supposed to kind of interact as a simulation that everything is perfect, but it's too damn perfect to the point where it's mundane, that it's driving you mad. It worked so well because from Postal 1, imagine you playing that game and then you go to Postal 2, you have knowledge of what you just did, your adrenaline is pumping, and then you go straight to 2, and then you're just so thrown off. Everything just feels so bright, so weird. Everybody who's talking just sounds off.
While I push my intros back in.
There's no urgency in anything. The world is just moving and you're supposed to move with it, despite knowing what you have just done. And I think that literal gameplay mechanic from 1 to 2, perfect, bro. Amazing. However, what starts out as a normal day quickly spirals. NPCs start to attack you, police start to interfere, protesters riot. You can avoid the violence, but oftentimes the game nudges you towards it. The world reacts hostilely to Postal Dude, no matter what you do. This is the classic symptom of preceptory delusion, a belief that others are out to get you, regardless of your actions. And here's where it gets clever. Even though you try, the player can't avoid conflict. The game practically dares you not to. You begin to feel what it's like to be in a world where you expect the worst from everyone. You start to believe that everyone deserves what's coming to them. That's not just satire, that's psychological modeling. And now that we're on the subject of psychological satire, I want to get more into it. Postal Dude uses extreme satire to create discomfort.
Would you please sign my petition?
I'm sorry.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Having teachers be armed, elephants just explode, religious groups are trigger happy. This isn't random, it's a psychological tool called absurdism. When the world makes no logical sense, the mind tries to impose structure, meaning, or narrative, and Postal 2 refuses to give you that closure. Instead, the game uses comedy as a trauma response. Beneath the slapstick and one-liners, there's something that feels off. Like someone laughing to keep from breaking down. Humor becomes a defense mechanism. Psychologically, this aligns with displacement. The brain converting stress into sarcasm or absurdity because its reality is just too painful. But there are a shit ton of mental health themes that I do want to get into. I keep talking about displacement and absurdism and all these type of different mental illnesses, but let's actually talk about what the mental health themes are about. Let's talk about Postal Dude himself. He's snarky, empathetic, numb to violence. His wife belittles him constantly. His home is a mess. His voice lines swing between casual irritation to existential exhaustion. This is just not a healthy man. Psychologically, we can identify traits of maladaptive coping, violence that replaces communication, flat effect, no emotions, just high and lows, just monotone reactions to the chaos surrounding him.
This is a stick-up! Don't move and you won't get hurt.
I suppose it would have been more politically correct to kill the women and the minorities first.
And these are just a couple of things that we can see that are some traits psychologically that dude is going through. This game lets you explore a key question. What does it look like when someone becomes emotionally numb to their environment because they believe they can no longer control it? This makes Postal 2 a case study of learned helplessness, a concept in psychology where someone exposed to repeated stress or trauma eventually just stops trying and they just accept it. Except here, the escape is mass destruction. But let us revisit the timeline. Now that we know that Postal Dude from the first game truly happened, he broke. If you want to view this as a precursor, you can, but me personally, I believe that Postal 1 happened first, and he went on a mass murdering spree. Everyone was affected by the anger. Something happened within his life, something was boiling within his daily life to the point where he would pull up arms and delude himself that he's cleansing the world while everybody is infected by this angry virus. But in reality, he's the angry one. He's the one that needs cleansing. But yet, he ends up in a mental asylum. And I like to believe that Postal 2 is so absurdly like out of the way, left field, that this is truly in the mind of someone who is going through maladaptive like coping mechanisms, trying to truly understand what it is that he's done and that he's perfectly fine. Another character that went through something similar was James Sunderland from Silent Hill 2, where he did showcase traits of maladaptive coping mechanisms as he killed his own wife moments before, drives to their special place, and believes that he's been looking for his wife for 3 years who has been dead. Because in his brain, his wife died 3 years ago when she was first inflicted with the terminal illness that she was struggling to survive from. And so that 3-year portion kind of just cemented itself in James's head as he killed her, and he's looking for his real wife until he goes through the town of Silent Hill and realizes the evils he's done. This is something very similar right here. Postal Dude goes to the mental asylum and he is trying to use these coping mechanisms of fantasy, of delusions, and it's almost as if we're living in his mind and his mind is trying to remind him at every fucking turn that he is not stable, that the world is out to get him. And you can see all his mental like illnesses come full force. Cops try to intervene, racial things start happening. His one-liners start to become flat because it's not meant, like there's no humor. It's all monotone emotion numbness. But let us revisit the timeline. Postal 1 ends in a mental collapse. Postal 2 starts in a normal town, but nothing feels grounded. The Apocalypse Weekend expansion becomes a literal zombie nightmare, and I don't really want to get into it, but it does start off in a hospital and a ground, so that could also hint towards there being more postal mental asylum business. And then Postal 3, well, we just don't talk about Postal 3. Nobody talks about Postal 3. Everybody hates Postal 3. But I digress. There's a strong argument that Postal 2 is a delusion coping fantasy, a simulation where Postal Dude imagines that he's in control, that the world is stupid, not him, and violence is justified. He's not alone, just misunderstood. This is known as grandiose delusion, a belief that you're smarter, more righteous, more important than you truly are, often as compensations of trauma or failure. So when we laugh at Postal 2's absurdity, we may actually be laughing at a defense mechanism. The town of paradise might not be a place, it might be a mental prison. So now, not only is he trapped physically, he is now trapped mentally within his own mind. But the last thing that I wanted to really talk about was the cultural relevance and the final thoughts on the game as a whole. Postal 1 and 2. Postal 2 came out in 2003 during a time of real culture anxiety. Post 9/11 paranoia, culture wars, media censorship debates, economic strain. In that context, Postal 2 isn't just offensive, it's reactive. It's an unfiltered scream into the void. It shows us what happens when a person in a society decides it's not worth fixing the system anymore, just burn it all down and laugh at the flames. But that's not healthy. It's a cry for help, a satire for our own disconnection. Postal 2 is vulgar, absurd, ugly, and in some twisted way, it's deeply human. It's not just a game about violence, it's about what happens when no one listens, when normal life becomes unbearable, and when a man who needs therapy gets a shotgun instead. The question it leaves us with is this: how many people are walking around today feeling like the Postal dude? Burnt out, ignored, and just at a moment's notice, ready to snap. I know that this is a very, 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 very sensitive topic, but I believe that Postal 1 and 2 is as relevant as ever. With all of these school shootings, at least in America, most recently, the Florida State University shooting, where I think 8 were confirmed dead, and the person doing the shooting was the child of a sheriff, of a police officer. Why is our mental health systems failing us? What could be what could it be here in America that allows for so many of our youth to feel as if they have no other escape, and so their only option is to grab a gun and hurt others, and potentially hurt themselves? It is a game that really makes you sit down and wonder, makes you comprehend the other side. It's very easily justifiable even to look at these school shootings and look at the shooter as an antagonist, as a villain. But the world isn't so black and white. Yes, what they did cannot be forgiven. Yes, we shouldn't forget and be like, well, shit happens. But we do need to comprehend that it's not black and white. That what happened was just simply a long-term effect of things that could have prevented it, but never did. And we need to know how to better ourselves in that regard, and better our mental health systems to allow us to be more attentive to these discoveries, and before it's too late. But if you made it this far in the video, thank you. Drop a like, do the Holy Trinity, it really helps me out. If you enjoyed what you watched here, subscribe. If you like the video, and if you're feeling a little, zesty, how about you leave a comment? Comment down below, what is your horror story at schools, if you have one. It could range from bullying, or it could range from lockdowns, tornadoes, disasters, anything. Look, I'll tell you one, okay? So there was this one time, actually, I have a couple of them. I'm trying to go with natural disasters or actually something else. You know what? I know one. So, I believe this was like 2016, 2018, somewhere. It was one of those things. But essentially, there was this clown epidemic. Yeah, I know. It sounds crazy when I think about it in retrospect, but I believe what started off as a joke, where people would dress up as clowns and do spooky things like stare at you from across the street and then run away. It got the wrong type of traction, because then actual serial killers, actual people with ill intent would dress up as these, clown people, and they would basically be a sheep and wolf, or a wolf in sheep's clothing, and they would actually do ill. And I remember that one day I was in school, and someone said that there were 3 clowns outside, and they had sharp objects, and they were staring at us, and they started sprinting at the school. And so they closed the doors, and he was knocking on the door. They were really trying to get in. They were trying to break the windows, but you know how schools have this, like, they have the iron bars, but they have also the window, so they would just break the window, and that was it. And I remember, it just seems so weird now thinking about it, but I remember not being too scared. I don't remember being too scared, but they were trying to kill us, which is really frightening to think about. Now that I think about it, that's just not a happy story. They was trying to murder us, and I was just sitting here oblivious in the classroom. We were sitting in the classroom, and our teacher told us to, because our door was on the right, And so she told us to go all the way to the most left of it, and we were all hunched up together with desk flipped over like a fort, and we were all just sitting there. It was kind of crazy. We didn't leave school early that day though. School proceeded as normal. But anyway, I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace out. Bye bye. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you want me to cover the absurdity of all of Postal, from Postal 1 all the way to Postal Brain Dead, and maybe we can make some form of a story out of it. But I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching. Peace out. Bye bye. Love you, and I will see you on the next one. Oh no, I don't have any facial hair anymore. Yeah, no. I wanted to actually put this last minute recording at the very end of the video. First of all, if you're watching until now, you are absolutely the GOAT. You are truly a part of the Yuri Nation. Yuri Nation, stand up! But no, I'm here to tell you guys that, or I'm here to sell myself to you guys, okay? So, quick reminder, if you guys have already subscribed and you're wanting more content, you're all caught up on all my videos somehow, then let me direct you to the membership side. So I don't usually plug my membership side in because I feel like if you're gonna support, then you're gonna support. But let me at least tell you what you're gonna get out of it, right? So for me, I don't enjoy putting gameplay with video essays. I'm actually working on another YouTube channel entirely, where I can do these long form gameplay videos, kind of like Berlin or whatever you want to say it. Not Corey X Kenshin with that 6-hour Goliath of a video that he just did. I'm about 3 hours into the video, but no. So on this side of the membership, it is a good way for you to see stuff like this.
You're coming!
I want you jump roping, bud.
I pretty much just post gameplay videos, highly edited. Some of the videos are old, but I've gone and archived them, so you're actually seeing archived work. Some others are more recent. I play Dark Souls, Elden Ring, Bloodborne, Skyrim. It's all form of content. And so if you guys are interested in seeing that, I have about 9 videos up on the membership side, and I have 2 full playlist series. And I'm actually about to have the finale of one, and then I'm gonna introduce another video where I beat I beat Dark Souls 3 with only a bow, and then I beat Dark Souls 3 again with only magic tools. So stay tuned to that if you guys want to watch it. It's only about $1 a month if that's what you're feeling, $3 a month if you're feeling spicy. But I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching. Bye bye, and I'll see you soon.